this mini driver world. Should I play a mini driver? Do I need a mini driver? What the hell is a mini driver? So let's start with this. We have AI Smoke.
She was in Goodwill Hunting.
Mini driver was in
Yeah, no.
Goodwill Hunting. Really appreciated her. What is up, everybody? How you living? No putts given. Tony Malbon Covey is back. Malbon? Tony, I didn't.
I'm cool now.
What?
I mean, what screams cool more than a perfectly mediocre Adidas golf shirt and the biggest logo you could possibly imagine? You put those two together, and I'm cool now.
I just didn't picture you as much of a streetwear guy, but I'm always willing to revise my my perspective based on new information. So cool. There you have it. Okay. We got gear to talk to. Big topic, this mini driver thing. That's going to take a bulk of it. But before we get to that, there's the U.S. Open this week. We got to talk a little Scheffler. Is shoes the most underrated apparel brand in the industry? How many people can even pronounce it correctly? I need to know about that. And then what happens after dual BOA, Tripe BOA? Are we going to get to like the... Is this going to be like an iPhone situation where we get to like iPhone, like BOA 12? It's going to be Hobson. All right, let's start with this. Memorial, Scotty Scheffler won. It's not a surprise to anyone. It ended up being a much more competitive final round than I had at first anticipated. The course was playing difficult, arguably more like a major championship course than, well, some other major championship courses that have already occurred. Valhalla. Question: is Scheffler getting enough credit for what he's doing? I'm going to argue he isn't.
I think he is. I mean, it's if only because he hasn't been doing it that long. I mean, he's having a hell of a season. Mm-hmm. The best season we've seen since you know who.
LT Gray.
But what are we, like halfway point? So I think maybe it's a little early to be like, this is all world. It is entirely possible that he doesn't win another thing at all this year. I feel like he's going to win everything this year, but that's not a guarantee. So I think, is this one of the best first halves of a season we've ever seen or seen in a while? I think that's true, but whether or not it becomes an all-time great season, there's still time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, can't forget. I mean, God, it was just last year, right? Victor Hovland, the way he finished in particular, it was like, oh my gosh, this is phenomenal. My thing with Scotty is this, though, is it's one thing when you're a good player or the best player in the field, but it's seeming to get to that situation, to me, where every other player knows it as well. Where if you go into a tournament and you know that, and regardless of what they may say publicly, but you know that there's another player in the tournament that, hey, if they play their best, I can't win. And that's the situation I think we're in right now with Scotty Scheffler, which is if he plays his best, everybody else is playing for the B flight.
Yeah, I think that's true, right? He is the guy before you put the tee in the ground on the Thursday morning. Like if I don't beat Scotty Scheffler, I'm not winning this tournament.
I mean, think about the things that have kept Scotty from arguably the most impactful things that have kept him from winning tournaments this year.
$80 golf pants, the
a Rogue
or $80 pants. Excuse
police
me.
Officer with a distinctly distorted viewpoint on the cost, the value of a pair of pants. So bizarre situation there. Complete opposite, pending birth of a child, right? I mean, becoming a father, that almost it kind of throws a wrench in there, right? And from that perspective, but you're getting to a really interesting situation where we're talking about the things that can keep you from winning a tournament aren't the other players in the tournament. They're external factors. So,
trouble at the gate. Like, yeah, I mean,
hey,
delayed
who's
flight.
Scotty Scheffler? Well,
what's going to happen, right? Weather delay with the flight. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, somebody loses your bag, a crazy sandstorm. The ghost of Donald Ross shows up, and I mean, These are the things we're talking about keeping him from winning. That's the stuff. I think, if anything, he doesn't get the credit so far that he deserves, because he's not flashy. He's not brash. He's not, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but he doesn't necessarily do things exceptionally well where you're like, oh my gosh. It's not like watching Bryson hit a ball off the tee.
Dude's a Honda Civic.
Toyota Camry, Honda Civic.
Right, no flash. Extremely reliable.
Mm-hmm. Ridiculously efficient. Mm-hmm. Ridiculous to maintain.
Right? It's excellent mileage.
Cost to maintain, and again, if people want to blame anybody, they should blame Rory for suggesting you go to a mallet putter, because that seemed to be the kryptonite, particularly early on, was around the greens, on the greens. He looks confident. He's rolling it good. When you're having a conversation,
Scotty is a mediocre putter. All he has to do is be mediocre. If he's an average putter, he's good enough everywhere else.
That's what I'm saying. Which, it kind of leads us into this, U.S. Open preview a little bit. Our man Sean Fairholm has some thoughts in there. I guess we'd be remiss not to mention the addition of one Alan Shipnuck as well to the My Golf Spy writing staff. Welcome, Alan. You're not here, but welcome. Nice to have you. Sean makes an argument. Hey, here's 10 players that could win the U.S. Open. Again, it's at Pinehurst. Number 2, maybe not your typical U.S. Open setup in the thought of like really tight fairways, dense rough, that kind of stuff. But who can win this thing, Tony? Who do you think can actually win this thing?
Scotty Scheffler.
Everybody else is like, whatever.
I mean, he's the guy you expect to be there at the end. Doesn't necessarily, mean he runs away with it.
Mm-hmm.
I never rule Koepka out. Bryson, can't rule Bryson out if you want to look at LIV guys. I think those are the two, maybe the only two serious.
Not Dustin Johnson. We got all this flack. People saying, "Oh, Dustin's not dead. He's this. He's that. Look at how he's doing." Blah 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 blah. No love for Dustin this week.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
No, none.
I don't think he cares if he's competitive.
No, I put money on him. I don't know what the line is, but I put money on him to miss the cut. Chambly, our friend Brandel, had a post up there too on the interwebs about basically looking at Pinehurst, specifically at that course. The importance of driving accuracy is specifically being in kind of the top 10 in driving accuracy. So regardless of the number, you got to drive it well. You got to drive it accurately to have an opportunity to score on this course. If you look at the PGA Tour stats this year, here's a couple names in the top 10 that you or I might find interesting. At number 10 right now, Scotty Scheffler. JT Poston, Aaron Rai, Siwoo Kim, Shane Lowry, Russell Henley, Tommy Fleetwood, Sepp Straka, Colin Morikawa. I would not be surprised if any of those guys won.
I'd be surprised if anybody from that list other than Morikawa or Lowry won. I'm not going to lie.
You would?
Yeah.
You'd be surprised if Tommy Fleetwood won?
I would, yeah. Like, it's just, you got to show it to me. He's never, I don't recall him ever really knocking on the door seriously in a major, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure somebody will pull a stat and go, well, at this tournament he was right there until whatever hole, but.
Yeah, and, we've seen this happen at U.S. Opens before where you get like a Michael Campbell, right? Where I'm not going to say it's a fluke. That's not at all the case. We've seen that maybe more with the Open, the British Open, as I like to call it, with your Todd Hamilton, Stuart Sink, guys that maybe haven't, they're not in that kind of same upper echelon. But if you were to pick somebody, let's say, further on down the list, is there anybody out there you go, here's my dark horse. Here's somebody that I could see doing really well, maybe even winning the thing, that isn't necessarily on people's radar right now?
I'm going to grab the field real quick and see who stands
and you can't take Adam Scott. Just because he's in the field, he's always got a chance. I'm going to say it. He's always got a chance.
I mean, barely in the field, but he got there. That's all that matters, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as long as you got a tee time, you got a chance.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Fitzpatrick seems like an easy kind of pick, you know?
Yeah, he kind of won a U.S. Open, I think, at Brookline a couple years ago. So
yeah,
he's been there, done that.
Stuart Hagestad.
Stuart Hagestad? Yeah, well, you got that. You know, you'd love to hear about the local
the local professional amateur.
More, hey, can anybody make the cut that, Colin Prater, high school teacher here in Colorado, is in the field, made it through sectional qualifying. I think that's probably a bit of a long shot. Here's mine. Tom Hoagie. 2 reasons. Number 1, hell of a ball striker. Number 2, named after a sandwich.
How don't do think that second one is true.
Yeah. How do you not go with that? So, anyway, that's my pick. Here's the other question I have. Would you rather see the U.S. Open be a bloodbath?
Yes.
Carnage?
Absolutely. I mean, I want, yeah.
I mean, are you okay with the USGA pushing it to the limit? And in order to do that, maybe they have to push it too far. Maybe we get a Shinnecock situation. Maybe we get something where, to figure out right where that edge is, maybe you have to go
you want to talk about, right, the rollback crowd talking about the skill of the game. And I realize that there is a point where the course maybe becomes unfair, and that's hard to quantify, and God knows people are going to start whining at different parts in that process.
Oh, yeah.
But
especially tour pros. Love the wine.
Oh, my God. But is not the mental part of the game, is that also not a skill? And so the guy who can endure a difficult golf course, the guy can endure situations where maybe the result of the shot wasn't entirely fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love to see that, especially like one tournament, one major a season, especially after Valhalla. Yeah, let it play firm and fast. Grow the rough, like tighten it up.
Yeah, I don't want to see -8 winning this thing. And for the record, I don't think we're going to. I really hope that we don't. I think Pinehurst sets up really well to be a tough examination. But yeah, I don't mind seeing par be a really good score on a hole, because it is for me personally. A birdie feeling like, wow, that was exceptional. And a bogey going, that's not awful. I can recover from that. That's going to happen. And I'm okay with it. I want to see these guys tested in a different way than maybe they're used to being tested. Where maybe you step up to a tee and you go, you know what? I don't need to be able to make birdie on every hole, even theoretically. Like, this is a par hole. If I make a 4 on this par 4, I'm gaining strokes on the field and walking to the next tee. I want to see that.
And did you see John Barba's tweet or reply to our tweet
what did
about
he say?
The U.S. Open?
What did one Barba have to say?
Again, in response to Sean's article, which was basically saying that he misses it back when the U.S. Open was actually a mother, of a challenge.
Oh, an MFer of a challenge.
An MFer of a challenge, right?
Yeah, so it was.
What John said in response to sharing Sean's article was, a cynic might say that if you wanted to push a narrative that the ball goes too far and needs to roll back, easing up on course setup for your premier event might be a way to do that. But only a cynic would suggest that.
Only a cynic would suggest that the USGA would be playing maybe a little bit of dirty pool with the course setup in an effort to further its own interests around a ball rollback. But again, yes, only a cynic would suggest such outlandish things. Good on you, Barba. Good on you. I love it. All right. And let us not forget, Tony, in terms of things that are important in this world, thank you to our friends out at L.A.B Golf. L.A.B Golf is, again, our title sponsor for this episode. The best putter for not just bad putters, Tony. Mediocre putters, even tour putters. Some might argue it's just a good putter for people who want to putt better. Have you got one yet?
No, I missed. Oh my God, too, and I missed another. I played well in league on Tuesday, but I missed putts I should have made. And I'm starting to feel lost. And
you were headed.
still, I'm such a contrarian. I got like, more and more I see him on the course. The guys at the headquarters love him, and I'm like, no, you can't make me. I will putt bad.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Moving on.
Let's switch to some equipment stuff because I want to talk about these things. We may get into some of the feedback we're hearing on Titleist GT drivers, stuff that we previewed last week. But I want to spend a bulk of this time on this mini driver world. Should I play a mini driver? Do I need a mini driver? What the hell is a mini driver? So let's start with AI Smoke.
She was in Good Will Hunting.
Mini driver was in Good Will Hunting. Really appreciated her. Total aside, is that a miss for somebody not to have like the Callaway Good Will Hunting mini driver edition? There's a collab. All right. Anyway, what is this thing? Talk to me. Goose. What do we got?
It's a Wii driver, but it's not as Wii as other mini drivers. So it starts to test the limits of what does it mean to be mini. So kind of, I actually went back in time when I found out this was coming and kind of ran down a timeline of mini drivers.
For you too.
There you go. Yeah. So the burner, right? So that one for comparison, 304 cc's. So
this one is the one I'm holding.
Yep.
So this is right at 300 cc's, 304.
This one is 340, so considerably larger in the grand scheme of things. And when you look at it, you're like, "Wow, there's no kind of, hey, maybe it's a fairway wood, maybe it's a driver. This looks the part of a driver."
Okay.
The SLDR Mini, which was my favorite, 260 cc's. Aero Burner Mini, which was nobody's favorite, 253 cc's. At the same time that the Aero Burner Mini was in the market, Callaway had their Big Bertha Mini.
Big Mini
1.5.
That's like jumbo shrimp. Ain't a thing.
Triple Diamond Max. That was 235 cc's, and those two were out at the same time, which may explain why there was a big gap between mini driver releases in the market.
The market and everybody lost their faith because
it was like, oh man,
couple suboptimal releases.
And then you see
damn it,
the 300 Mini, that was 307 cc's, so not too far.
307.
Yeah, the original 1 Mini, 275. And then if you want to kind of plot some other points on a map, which I think are fascinating, and I'll tell you why I'm excited about this kind of thing. So you have I put this on my chart here. My chart. I'm the only one that sees this chart so far, but we're going to make a graphic out of it at some point. TSR 2 plus fairway, right? Objectively, just a slightly oversized fairway wood, 190 cc's. Ping Rapture fairway from several years ago, 219 cc's. So again, that oversized fairway versus mini driver, and then you get the unreleased to the public, available for tour players. Maybe we'll see one or two at Pinehurst, who knows. Titleist TSR, 280 cc's. So that's kind of on the low end of where we are today, on the bigger end of where we were in the SLDR / Aero Burner phase of this mini driver thing.
All right, so now that we've kind of set the stage of mathematically where these things fall, and just to recap real quick, the largest fairway woods, when you get an oversized fairway woods bumping up against that 200cc area, 275, 280 is kind of the smaller end of the mini driver space. TaylorMade's historically been right around 304, 307.
You can say 300 and you're going to be...
300 cc's. The bigger of the mini drivers now, 340. That's the Callaway one you have with you.
Yes, this is the Callaway Paradym Ai Smoke Ti 340 mini driver, and I think we're out of time.
We are. That's a play call in the West Coast offense. Not
so many.
What's the purpose? What is the purpose of a mini driver?
It's what do you want it to be, and that's what fascinates me about this.
Can it be an ice cream?
Good luck with that. But it is sort of, if you kind of look like, what I found unique about this release is if you look at past entries in the mini category, including the TaylorMade stuff, everything that came before and around it, it's really tried to straddle this line of like, well, it's a mini driver, meaning it's a small driver, but you can still hit it off the fairway. It's compact enough where it can be used off a fairway, so you can use it like a fairway would. It's kind of in the middle between the two. Now, Callaway will tell you size-wise, this is in the middle, which it is, but looking down on it, I'm not saying you're not going to hit it off the fairway. The driver off the deck crowd, if you can hit a driver off the deck reliably, you're going to be fine. But if you're like, hey, should I replace my 3-wood that I need to hit off the deck? This is going to be a big ask. And Callaway's not kind of shying away from that. They're saying, hey, what we did was looked at what's happening on tour. Tour guys are not hitting 3-wood into green. It's almost exclusively become an off the tee club for situations where you may run out of fairway, outkick your coverage that way, or precision is required, if you will. And so
to the degree that you're straighter with a
right. And so this is meant to be a smaller, easier to hit driver, period. A mini driver. Fairway use, we're not even really considering it because, again, based on what the tour players are doing, they don't use a 3-wood off the deck that much anymore and not into greens, and so we don't need to design for that. At least not with this one.
All right, so go back a second. So in the traditional world, and this is going to be the norm, right, that most people have, driver, 3-wood, 5-wood, 7-wood, the idea being a 3-wood is that for most golfers, for pretty much every golfer, it had to be multi-purpose, right? You had to be able to hit it off the tee, which, okay, no problem. But you had to be able to hit it off the deck, right? Off the turf. Long par 5, whatever the purpose of a 3-wood was, in part, you had to be able to play it from the fairway when you needed a club that you could hit a pretty good distance. But what I hear you saying is that ain't the case anymore.
Definitely not. Again, this is strictly designed to be off the tee. And again, not saying you can't hit it off the deck. You may be able to. I just like when I put this down, got it out of the box, took one look and was like, whoa, that's for a mini driver. Whoa. That's a big golf club.
So, all right, let me ask you a different question then. So, and this goes back to a conversation I was having with Marty Jertson. This was right after, saw Tony Finau put in 2 drivers, higher lofted one and lower lofted one. He said basically what they kind of saw is exactly what you're saying, is particularly at a swing speed. So let's say guys were 115 miles an hour with a driver or faster, even put it up close to that 120 category. They were like 90-10, meaning 90% of the time they were hitting their longest fairway wood, it was off the tee. Once out of every 10 times that they were using it was off the deck. And in that case, it was typically, hey, how far can I get this thing to go and run and chase? It wasn't I need
into a green right.
Yeah. It's 270 to the screen, and I'm trying to carry something 270 that will
land
stop
soft.
them. Yeah. Right. So when they were going for a par 5 in 2, and they were trying to hit the green and hold it, it was a number that they could do with a 4-wood, 5-wood, 7-wood, 3-iron, whatever the case was. Okay. If that's the case, are 3-woods going to become obsolete? It sounds like we're making a case that what's the purpose of a 3-wood then? Because why wouldn't I just carry I've been bagging this last couple of weeks. I love it. Why would I go back to a traditional 3-wood?
So I thought this through from my own kind of selfish needs. Like, how do I use my 3-wood? And
every golfer sure.
Could I then sacrifice it? And it's going to be a decision point for everyone. And so I thought about, where do I hit my 3-wood? Where do I feel like I want the 3-wood? I almost have to have it. Mm-hmm. Number 6 at McGregor. Of course, you've played a few times. You saw me hit 3-wood 3 times on number 6, which never good. I still made par.
Different story.
But
right.
A good drive on that hole, and it is reachable for me with a 3-wood. Mm-hmm. If I said, all right, what does a bag look like with a mini driver in it? Okay, it's driver, mini driver in the 3-wood spot, maybe I get one I can hit off the deck. The burner you have there, I've had some success with. It's not my favorite, but it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to go, the next spot in the bag at that point would probably mean dropping the 5-wood.
Yeah.
Splitting the difference, and you're going with something in the 16-degree range, call it a 4-wood, and then going from the 7 from there. And so on that shot, a good drive, unless it's astronomically
you're not going to get there
good,
in 2, though.
I cannot get there with the 4-wood. And so it's like, do I sacrifice it? And I think, all right, where else might I use this? Well, again, number 2 on a bad day, if I'm not swinging well, like 2 is exactly what Callaway describes.
Yeah.
That's the one where it's, it's one of those pucker up kind of holes. And there are a couple others on the course, depending on how the swing is that day, where it may make sense. But for my needs, I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but I would really have to get out and test it and see what shots I can hit with it and what I can't.
Yeah.
And if it comes down to, like, there is absolutely no way that I can be comfortable off the deck with this thing on number 6 from what may not be a perfect lie, then I think it's probably a no for now. But the ripple in this is I do hit my 3-wood off the deck. Again, I hit it on 6. I hit it probably on 15 after like a 5-wood off the tee.
Sure.
And the thing is, I hit my 3-wood well. And that's the missing piece here is understanding that for a lot of golfers, the 3-wood is the hardest club to hit in the bag. And we still see these guys, they have them, they can't hit them, they don't want to hit them. It's just kind of this thing in the bag that they try and avoid. And so if you can take a club that gives you headaches, serves no purpose other than, it gives you a target to pick around
on it because
and you can put in something that actually has utility for you, that makes sense. So in my case, maybe not, but I can see for a lot of guys that something like this would make sense. And then if you are saying, no, this is not anything I plan on hitting off the deck, this is not a replacement for the driver, it's a complement to the driver, a second driver that I'm going to use, tight holes where I don't need to max out distance, wherever it needs to be, then you've really got something. But you could almost make the argument that that's what I'm doing with
driver
it.
Then why not just
if I'm going to do that, if all I'm doing is hitting it off the tee, and I don't need it to go as far, but I want it to go straight, and I want to control it and do all those things I get from a shorter shaft, not the smaller head, right? None of that is coming from the smaller head is functionally to maintain the illusion of being able to hit it off the deck.
Off the deck, right.
So I start to think, well, why not? Why not go to 460? We've seen some people experiment that. I was kind of thinking about, like, nobody's done that. And I'm like, but Cobra kind of has, right? They sold tour length drivers at one point. They didn't advertise them as anything other than a driver replacement, not as a complement for exactly the situation that a mini driver is built for. And we've seen some experimental stuff. JJ at Titleist made something for somebody else at Titleist that we got to swing a few times. And you start to wonder, like, if I'm going to take the 3-wood out of the bag and I'm going to replace it with a smaller driver or distance reduced driver, why wouldn't I still want the MOI and the forgiveness of the larger head?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying is, like, okay, let's say, if you're going to totally abandon the idea that you're going to hit it off the deck at all, or let's say that hypothetically you are proficient enough that you are a driver off the deck person, and I can think of one guy at my club that is a proficient driver off the deck person, where if he had a 13-degree driver, okay, that's fine. But why not get, like, if you're going, like you said, I need to hit this thing straight but shorter, just give me a 12, 13-degree ping 10K. That thing's straight as all day. I mean, that thing is, straight as an arrow. And I'm going to build it at 43 length of 43 or something.
43.75.
Great. Now I have, something that's probably reliably 15, 20 yards shorter than my driver. But I haven't given up any of the MOI benefits, any of the forgiveness benefits, since I'm not going to hit it off. I mean, is that a risk where you get such a big mini that the less functional it becomes off the deck, the more you're making an argument that, why not just have to actual drivers instead of a large mini driver.
And that's exactly it. And maybe I think I would love to see this category. The parallel I draw in the article is with players' distance irons, where you have you have more spread than any other iron category, where you have, call them smaller, compact designs.
More of the player distance,
right?
If you
Putting
will.
the players in players, right? Your T100S or your probably P770, right? That kind of thing. And then at the other end, you have these larger, more forgiving designs, P790, something like that. Some of the
more distance in the player's distance,
right. And so there's no reason why you couldn't have that with the mini driver category, other than, hey, is there enough of a market to invest in kind of plotting along this line? But yeah, I would love to see, again, looking at these, what is out there now, what has been out there, what may come out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This is interesting for the guy who, I'm never going to hit it off the fairway, or I'm proficient enough driver off the deck where, a 200 or 340 cc club does not scare me the least from a fairway lie.
Yeah, you're just trying to hit it 8 feet off the ground and let it run forever.
But I'm like the TSR at 280, which again does not exist at retail. That's where I personally feel the most comfortable, or think I would be the most comfortable. Again, having played the SLDR, having played the burner a little bit, and going, man, I just wish this was a little smaller so that I could do more with it, or be more confident with it off the deck. Yep. Some of that's going to be just how you shape the volume that you have, but yeah, I would love to see a range of options. Everything from, call it 220, 230, where that even smaller than where Bertha Mini was, all the way up to let's go all the way up to 460. And again, I could argue that's kind of where Cobra was with their tour spec drivers. Just kind of didn't tell the story as you could get a regular one and then use this where your 3-wood is. So.
Yeah, I think the idea, does it cannibalize? Does it make the traditional 3-wood obsolete? I think there's an argument that it makes the traditional 3-wood a 4-wood.
Maybe. And one thing, I mean, I hope we're jumping ahead here, but looking down, 5 years down the road, if you roll back a golf ball, now all of a sudden is the mini driver obsolete because we need to go back to the 3-wood because now, we need that. We need that longer target club. So it's fascinating. And I think I'm glad Callaway is in, right? Because now not only is there an option for somebody who doesn't love the burner, now maybe there's some incentive for somebody to go, hey, all right, we got these guys in here. We need to jump in and compete with something here. And if, again, with Titleist at 280 cc's at the TSR, I don't expect that's going to come to market when the new drivers come out, but
it'd be interesting.
It's in the back pocket, and I know they're going to be looking at this Callaway stuff and going, all right, hey, do we need to do anything? And if so, where do we feel the sweet spot is?
Yeah, and I'll be really interested to see if, obviously the timing is not inconsequential, right? Leading into events like US Open and then the Open, where you may have firm, fast conditions off the tee, and these things, might be important. I'll be interested to see with tour players, to the degree that people watch or care, in what situations do they play these? Because we see this with other clubs in the bag all the time where, you may switch out your lob wedge based on the condition of the course. This could be that space, and we've talked about that 3 hybrid, 7-wood, higher lofted fairway wood, hybrid type space as a place where little Swiss Army knife, right? People may change out depending on course conditions. Maybe maybe it's like driver, and then whatever through your longest iron, that's now the Swiss Army space in the bag.
Well, yeah, you've heard me talk about 2 in the trunk, right? My 2 in the trunk approach to clubs.
Yes, Tony's 2 in the trunk.
Lob wedge, maybe a utility iron instead of in that 5-wood spot for when it's windy, and you could make the case that maybe we
3 in the trunk.
Starting to get uncomfortable here. But this idea of whether it's course conditions, whether it's the layout of the holes themselves. Like this is a tight course, or I'm thinking ahead. I've got member coming up, and like maybe I put a mini in the bag for those holes in which my partner maybe doesn't hit such a good drive, and now we need that one in play. So, and then I'm also like
strategy.
But what about when I need to hit that green in too?
I don't know, Tony. Well, this is why there's choices, and it's an imperfect world, and it's fun to discuss. Very quickly, thumbs up, thumbs down. Are you into the triple BOA, Tony? FootJoy triple BOA.
I love the idea. I don't think the Tour Alpha is the right shoe for me. Certainly not with that Carbitex, that extra stability, which it doesn't work with my feet, my way of doing things in the golf swing. Like I said, Scheffler without the skill kind of approach to it. But I do. Yeah. I love the triple BOA for customizing. Just kind of, hey, I want it to be a little looser here, a little tighter here. Found like I tend to, and this is not like just something I think to be true, when FootJoy scanned my shoes at the PGA show year before last, or my feet rather, found like I have a tall arch, right? So I tend to sometimes rub against the top of the shoe. And so being able to independently adjust that kind of that upper area in two places, I like it.
Starting to feel like a luxury seat in a vehicle where you get your lumbar, you get your sides, like, your massaging features. You're going to get it dialed in. Whew. That's plenty of info. I really want to know what people think about this stuff. I really want to know what people think about the BOA and all those things. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Comment below.
Tell us how ugly the BOA shoes are.
Tell us how ugly the BOA shoes are. Tell us if you play a mini driver. Tell us all of these things, and maybe who you think is going to win this week. And if you do, maybe Tony will send you a pair of BOA shoes. How about that?
It's dirty, used BOA shoes that are almost certainly not to be your size.
There you go. You got it. All right, until next time. We out.